This is Merchandise Mart. Transfer to Brown Line trains at Merchandise Mart. Doors closing.
Interesting.
Kind of got a tang.
Yeah, it does. Well, welcome to the Wisendale Weekly Wrap-Up. I'm Felix, and super excited about my guest today, spur of the moment. Go ahead, you can introduce yourself.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm really pleased to be here.
Yeah.
It's really lucky timing because I'm in Chicago at the moment, so I'm so glad you invited me at this time.
Yeah, I figured with the event or with the fair coming up, like you guys would do some planning, so I wanted to get on your radar. And then, thankfully you're here. So tell just a little bit background, like where are you from and things like that sort.
So at the moment, I'm the fair director for our East Coast office cities. So I run our Brooklyn, Chicago, and Toronto fairs at the other art fair. And I've been with the fair for about 8 years. So really started at the beginning at the fair. Before that, I studied music at university in the UK. And then went on to do a master's in history of art at Oxford University, and sort of was looking at doing a more going sort of down the more traditional route into museums and galleries, but came across the fair and absolutely loved the mission of the fair, working with artists and giving them a voice that they might not, and a platform that they might not have otherwise. Yeah. And
did it start in Brooklyn?
Since then, it started in London.
Oh, started. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, so started in London on the South Bank. Did about 80 artists. It was founded by Ryan Stanier, who is still with the fair. And from that very small team, grown it to take the fair to Australia, in Sydney and Melbourne. And we brought the fair to the US in about 3 years ago. So started in Brooklyn and kind of spread.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
How big is the fair now?
So we have 14 fairs this year.
Wow.
And we're across, we have our London fair, Sydney, Melbourne, and then LA, Dallas, Chicago, Brooklyn, and Toronto. I'm trying to remember them all.
So, but you only have to plan and coordinate Brooklyn, East Coast, all the East Coast stuff.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
How big's the team? Like, how big are your...
So there's about 3 of us in the office in New York, and we work across the rest of the team. So we're really spread across all of the fairs with operations and marketing. But we're part of a bigger company now. So 3 years ago, we were acquired by a company who also owns the platform Saatchi Art. Yes. And they're based in LA. So we're sort of part of this much bigger company, media company, which is really exciting because we can sort of tap into their online presence and give more opportunities to artists. Yeah,
and the resources, I'm sure, have opened up for so the genesis or the idea behind the other fair is what?
So it really came from a situation that I can say I've heard Ryan talk about it a lot over the years. He had a group of friends that wanted to buy art, and he also knew artists that wanted to sell art, and those two groups just weren't really coming together. And he saw that there was an opportunity to create a platform to join them, and it was really successful right from the start. It's a really simple idea: come and meet an artist, buy from the artists, and to build a relationship directly with them. So
the artists, obviously they're manning their booth.
Yes.
And then when is it in Chicago?
It's the 27th to 30th of May.
Okay. And where's it going to be at?
It's at the Skylight, which is at the Board of Trade building.
Okay.
So right in the heart of downtown.
Yeah.
So we're really excited to bring the fair to such a beautiful location.
Yeah.
It's the old trading floor. So as you walk into the space, you can kind of see the old ticker boards, and it looks amazing. Yeah.
How did you guys find that space?
Well, we're always on the lookout for spaces. Yeah. I spend a lot of time looking in strange buildings, and so many photos on my phone are just, I don't know, like strange architectural elements.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And elevators. And
Where was it last year?
We were at Mana Contemporary before.
Oh, okay,
so we
Southside.
launched in 2018 in Mana Contemporary, which is an amazing space. I absolutely love it. It's got that beautiful gallery feel, and which is really inspiring for artists to show their work in such a smart, professional environment. So we did 2 fairs there, but we've now decided to sort of bring the fair more central, and this new space it's been newly restored, so it's ready to be used. We're really excited to be there.
How many artists did you guys have last year?
Had about 120.
120.
Have the same this year as well.
Yeah, and is it the same like fair style? Like they get the certain size, or does it depend on what the artist wants to get?
It depends on what the artists want.
Okay.
So all of our artists apply online. They get selected by a committee, and then they can choose the booth that they want, and then we work with them as well to find a space that best suits their work. So we ask them to submit a curation form and work with them to create the space that works best. So if they have installation pieces or work sculpture, then we find a space that really highlights that.
Yeah.
Or to enhance our visitor experience as well. So we want our visitors to come into the space, walk around, and really every turn discover something new and enjoy that experience, as well as hopefully buy some art.
And then so you came in town, and then now you're looking at, I guess, when do you start planning? And do you start planning it immediately after it ends?
Yes.
Yeah.
Almost planning before it ends. And it's important for us to try and actually enjoy the fair when it's happening, because we're always thinking of the next thing, and often being in the city inspires you for a future project. So yes, we're planning well in advance, but once we get a few months out, it's really when we start putting together lots of meetings and finalizing our partnerships, and going to artist studios as well is really important.
Yeah, that is cool. How do you, is it typically local artists, or do other artists from other cities apply too?
It's a real mix. So we have about 500 applications, and it's a mix of local artists and artists from all over the world. But we really encourage applications from local artists. We want to showcase the best of that city, as well as bring in new talent. Yeah.
And does the price point range? Or do you guys have like a general price point that you guys are trying to stay within?
It's pretty free for the artist to show sort of it, because it's a fair for them to be independent and represent themselves almost. We guide them, but ultimately they are free to curate the booth and price their works as they wish. As they're emerging artists, it's usually at the sort of affordable end of the scale, so it's really a chance to come and discover an artist that's early in their career, and then will hopefully be picked up by galleries or go on to sell, and their prices will increase. So the prices are very accessible, ranging from anything from perhaps $200 for a limited edition print to maybe $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 for an original painting. But it really depends on the work.
Yeah. So there's no galleries at all in the booth?
No.
Okay.
No. We don't want to sort of work against the gallery system. We really want galleries to come along to the fair, buy, talk to our artists, meet them, and then hopefully pick them up and bring them into the gallery roster. So we invite all the galleries to come along, but there are no actual galleries showing at the fair. Gotcha. It's very much meeting artists, the people that create the work.
What is your sense of the gallery formula right now? I've been reading a lot that some galleries in New York are closing. I know that a few galleries here in Chicago have closed. What do you think that there's an end to that gallery closing, or?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and I think with the rise of art fairs over the last 10 years, it's just really changed the landscape of the art world.
Yeah. But the art fairs are they're pretty noisy, I guess. Super noisy. And it's more of a show. It's not really, typically you may get a few buyers that go through the art fairs, but it's more of a show, I feel.
Yes, and they sort of fulfill a lot more functions than just sales, so it can be pretty hectic experience.
Yeah.
People kind of go to be seen, and some galleries sort of move towards putting on really eye-catching work that's maybe not as thoughtful or as engaging, just because they have to stand out in that really crowded marketplace.
Yeah.
So I think fairs put a lot of pressure on galleries. It's been, I'm sure, difficult for the sort of the mid-level galleries that to participate in the main fairs is just so expensive.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's also why there's a lot of those satellite fairs. I mean, I'm speaking in only reference to Art Basel and what's going on down there. Do you? I assume you go.
Yes,
Okay.
and I love the satellite fairs.
Yeah.
They're often the really interesting.
Yeah, because I know I was looking into one of the galleries, and it's literally like one girl who just started her own gallery, and she had a booth, she had a presence down at Art Basel, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah.
What did you like this year when you went down there?
So I actually didn't go to Miami Basel this year.
Okay.
But the year before, I really enjoyed the Untitled Art Fair. I thought that was beautifully done. And it's obviously still very sort of high-end galleries. Really enjoyed that. But one of my favorite fairs is the Spring Break Art Show that takes place in New York during Armory Week. They've just opened an edition in LA during Freeze, I think. And that fair is curator-led, and they take over a big space. There's a theme each year, a space like a hotel or some sort of office building. So it's not like your usual exhibition hall. And each curator is given a space, and they can present a project. So it's a really interesting fair, and lots of the artists are often picked up by press. It's just a really exciting place to go. I feel like I'm promoting the wrong fair.
No, it's okay. I mean, it's okay to be, to pay homage or a tip of the cap to other art fairs or other companies that are doing something similar.
Yeah, I'm really inspired by that fair.
Yeah,
so
what was
really
the name of that
recommend.
one?
It's called Spring Break Art Show.
Spring Break Art Show.
It's quite irreverent and sort of challenging the art world. So it's definitely worth checking it out.
I think I cut you off about the what your thoughts on the galleries and how that's playing out.
Well, I think a gallery is really valuable there's an artist, if it's the right sort of gallery, it's definitely a place for those sorts of organizations, because they really nurture an artist, especially if they discover the artist in an early stage. That artist might be creating all sorts of work, and sort of it's perhaps not being sensitive to the market and how they present their work, and it takes someone with a gallerist's experience and expertise to look after that artist and really help them grow, and at a suitable rate. So you don't want an artist to grow too quickly, but you also want them to progress. I'm not a market expert, but I think it kind of throws the market if you suddenly sort of ramp up the prices of an artist's work, and then if they peak too soon, it's quite problematic for the rest of their career, really.
Gotcha.
So you just want to build up your CV as an artist, the residencies, and working with the right galleries and doing group shows, and sort of have a really solid background.
And all that takes time, right?
Yeah, it takes time, and it takes good galleries.
Yeah.
I just think there's quite a lot of, I don't want to say bad galleries, but there's other galleries that perhaps don't do as much for the artist.
Okay.
They take maybe 50%, but they don't sort of fulfill the other function of really looking after that artist and fostering their talent. So
yeah,
I think that's where it's difficult for that.
Is the typical gallery setup, is it more 60-40, or so you're saying like some galleries take 50 as if that's in the artist's favor, right? But are there galleries, or I guess everything just depends on the gallery, right?
I think
but is it more
yeah.
like 60-40 or 75-25? I guess it depends.
I think it really depends. And also it's one of those things, the art world's not that transparent. So there's lots that goes on behind closed doors that no one knows about.
Yeah.
So it's hard to say. I mean, I think 50, it really depends, I think, on the artist.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's usually at least 50-50. So it's difficult for artists. But then it's difficult for galleries because it's so expensive doing art fairs and keeping a gallery space open.
Yeah. Yeah, that's got to be a huge task.
Yeah.
And how long is the fair here?
So it's the 27th to 30th of May.
27th,
So
30th.
4
Okay.
days, yeah.
And then what do you guys have like active? Do you have events as well around or within the fair? Or who plans that, I guess, as well?
We sort of plan it as a team. Depends on our partnership. So at the moment for this fair, meeting up with potential partners and looking at our features, because we really try and create the other environment. So not only do we have our 120 artists, but we have features that really sort of inspire our audience. And perhaps you wouldn't find these elements of sort of the creative world in a more traditional art fair environment. So it kind of challenges our visitors, maybe makes them laugh, just makes it an accessible, welcoming, friendly fair, as well as being a serious place to buy art. And that's really important for us. We've always tried to create an environment that's really welcoming and it's not intimidating. I think sometimes the art world can be...
It's very intimidating.
Yeah, so you walk into a gallery and it's hard to know how to act and you don't feel welcome and there's no prices on the walls.
Yeah.
Whereas at the fair, we ask all our artists to put prices by their works. So you just take away that barrier for people who would like to buy art, but perhaps they're not used to talking to artists. They don't go to studios or they don't really know where to start. And you don't want to have that awkward conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. Excuse me. Is it compartmentalized, like similar to Art Basel? Like I know how they have like different shows within the show. Do you guys try to curate that or have that sort of direction?
Yeah, we curate the fair. I curate the fair, which is definitely one of the highlights of my job.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
love it. So once all our artists are selected, I look at all their work and look at their curation proposals for their individual booths and then spend quite a few days just in that world with the floor plan looking at all the work and thinking about how it will complement their sort of neighboring stands, but also because we want to create this really friendly environment and an artist community, I sort of think about other factors like how, who the artist is and perhaps they know other artists or they've traveled from afar and they're coming sort of from the same country as another artist. So we really try and build connections with artists, between artists as well. Yeah. So the curation is a really interesting part of it. And I think it's really important because otherwise the experience can be overwhelming for the visitor. You want to walk down one area in an aisleway and feel as though the work complements each other and makes sense and it's almost like walking through a gallery in some ways.
Yeah.
You don't want it to be just completely random and then it's quite sort of disorientating, I think.
When's the Toronto one?
That's in September.
That's in September.
Our launch fair for this year.
Oh,
so
really?
It's a big project.
Yeah. Yeah, I've never been to Toronto, so I think this might be one of the reasons. Is there Film Fest in September as well?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So we'll be happening at the same time as the film festival, which will be interesting for us, just for our positioning. But I'm looking at working with some collectives that more work in sort of film and video art, so we can kind of connect to the conversation happening around TIFF, the film festival.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
Have you been to a film fest? Have you been to like Sundance or anything like that?
I haven't actually.
Okay.
No, have you?
Yeah, I have. I have. It's
What's it like?
It's a lot. It was a lot. I think we saw 5 movies, I think, in one day, and it was exhausting. And by the end of we went to an 11 o'clock show for the award, the winner of the festival. And I think we had to leave because I was falling asleep and it was just a lot.
Yes, I'm hoping that maybe some of the celebrities, if they have a chance, can come to the fair.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're not really a celebrity fair in that way, not like some of the fairs at Basel, in Miami particularly. Yeah. So that would be really exciting for the team and the artists.
Well, what did you think about the comedian or the banana I would love to get your insight on that.
I thought it was, it really highlighted the art fair environment and some of the negative sides of art fairs, which is a shame. I think art fairs are really sort of engaging spaces, or can be. And I think I liked the humor and the sort of the concept behind the work.
Yeah.
It sort of fits into the artist's practice. But I think that the reaction from that was just so extreme. I think it was a shame for the art world in many ways. Yeah. And you had people coming, like friends who don't work in art and maybe don't really have particular interest in art, asking me about it. And I was like, this is really not showing my work in a good light. They didn't really have a very good answer to their questions.
It definitely created a buzz, and just even seeing, how they eventually had to take it down, and just because of the commotion. When we saw it, I think we saw it on that Friday morning. It was packed already, and it is interesting. It does start a dialogue, and it did talk. Other people who don't know anything about Art Basel or art in general still talk about it. And I mean, my mother was even like talking about it. Like, well, what did you think of that? And I'm just like, oh man. So it definitely was an interesting piece. Now, how would a fair screen that? Like there's no real way to know that piece would cause that commotion, right? Like, do you think the gallery knew that was going to happen? I
don't know. I mean, some people would say it's all a PR stunt.
Yeah.
And especially in Miami, at Basel, there's a lot of that happening. Lots of loud pieces just trying to catch attention. But I don't think anyone could have predicted what could have happened.
Yeah, I mean, that was super loud. And I think that's part of that noise thing that we were talking about. Like, it's interesting, even seeing Wynwood, how much that has changed, and the activations that happened down there is interesting.
I think it's something that you sort of have to accept that it happens now in the art world. The side of the sort of the sensationalizing side of things, and the fact that people will want to take photos and put them on social media, and even make memes about it. It's just moving in that direction. And I think if fairs and galleries can embrace it but also maintain integrity, that's probably the best way to go about it.
I think it's the integrity part.
I mean, I think it's unavoidable, and if you're thinking with a business mind, then and those sorts of stunts certainly get a lot of attention. But if you can balance that with really sort of thoughtful work as well, I think you can't really fight it. I mean, I'm sure some galleries will maintain their sort of very traditional outlook, but as a fair, we're trying to appeal to lots of people. You can't be too snobby about it. No, absolutely. I mean, do you see is the demographic typically younger that come to the other fair, or how would you say like that, the collector or the buyer? It's interesting. Our audience is pretty varied, which is great, because the artists we show are also varied, and our sales sort of spread across our artists. So we are appealing to lots of different people and benefiting lots of different artists. So we don't attract a particularly young or old crowd. It's really for everyone, and we try and create an experience that is suitable for all, including families as well. So And what type of artwork do you like personally? Like what pieces do you have in your place? I like.
Do you paint? Do you have some sort of creative outlet as well?
I studied music, so I'm more of a musician than an artist.
Nice.
And then I did art history. And
what instrument?
I play the piano and the organ.
Very pretty. Very pretty.
I love playing the piano. And often artists, like you find out that artists are musical themselves, which is always nice to have that kind of connection.
Do you have a piano in your place in New York?
No.
Okay, that was a loaded question because I was like, if you have a piano in a place in New York, your apartment probably is pretty big.
Yeah. No. But in terms of the art, I think working at the fair has been great because it's really sort of opened my eyes more and started exploring more art that I wouldn't maybe like before. So I sort of came from quite a traditional background, studying art history and like the Italian Renaissance and that side of things, and then moving, we wouldn't have ever discussed conceptual art or street art or anything like that, but the fair is very varied, which is exciting. But in terms of the work that I like, it's often quite sort of quieter pieces, like monochromatic or small etchings. It's pieces that sort of draw you in but aren't really loud and bold, but I'm trying to look for bolder works as well, but it's trying to go in that direction, but I'm always drawn back to the kind of quite minimal pieces. I like textile work as well. Textile work is something I know Weisendale is super active. We started a Chicago Textile Week last year. Oh, cool. And it was a whole nother type of artist that I really haven't been exposed to. And seeing some of the work that they do is beautiful. And I need to definitely step up my textile and tapestry collection. Yes. And I think like storing the artwork is tough, right? Like having, what do you do with the artwork that you want to rotate out, or if you're not fortunate enough to have a storage locker or some sort of like rolling display. I mean, have you seen other creative ways that people are storing things? Well, I think it's lucky that salon hangs are fashionable. Sort of the wall of artworks is definitely on trend. So I think that's lucky because you can you can sort of have really eclectic collection, and there's a lot of personality in one wall. So you can have smaller pieces and larger pieces. But apart from that, I mean, the buyers coming to our fair, because of the price points are accessible, there's not sort of extra costs in terms of storage or looking after the works. They are pieces that you can buy from the artists and take home and put on your wall, which is really nice. I think once you move into the realm of really having to look after the work and sort of create special conditions, that's just a whole another thing. That is a whole nother thing. I think maybe 2 or 3 years ago I saw the Art Money, which was like it's like a loan program that people can apply for, and I think it's called Art Money. Yes, is it Art Money? Yeah. And that I think is super interesting that someone is insurancing that and taking art serious enough for the people who can't afford. Sure, you may want that piece and it's 10 grand or 20 grand, but you cannot afford that, and that's where I think art. Huge plug for Art Money. Yeah. No, I think any scheme like that's fantastic because it encourages people to start collecting, but it also really supports artists. So it's a fantastic scheme. We have something similar for our London fair called Own Art in the UK. It's publicly funded, which means there's sort of an interest-free loan. So the funding takes out the interest. So they're great schemes. Now, is the London Fair, I guess what I'm just wondering is, how are they different? How are the makeups different per city? Because is it the artwork that's going to be totally different, or is it I know it's got to be the artists, like the styles have to range. Yes. It certainly does range depending on the city because we attract different types of artists. And actually for our Dallas fair, because there's a strong design there's a strong design community in Dallas as well. We had artists specifically applying for Dallas because they wanted to tap into that community and meet people there. And it's the same for Chicago. I mean, lots of artists are very inspired by the city and specifically want to show in Chicago because they feel their work will be of interest to people coming to the fair. But from our point of view, we certainly try and make each fair feel very relevant to the city it's in, rather than, say, taking a template fair and just dropping it into different places. Because in some ways, anyone could do that. Anyone can find a space and get some walls in and sort of promote it. But it's really the local connections that build the fair, build the momentum, and keep us relevant in the city. And that's why it's really fun for us, because we get to go around meeting so many people. And in Chicago, everyone is so friendly, and often meeting one person, then you meet someone else, they introduce you to someone.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So,
we were talking about the artwork, the people. Shit. I was going to ask you something on that. That's what it is. So if one artist gets approved in one show, can they just do they have to reapprove for like the Dallas show or the Toronto? They'll have to reapply, I guess.
Yes, they have to reapply for every fair.
Okay.
So it always keeps it fresh, and we're always looking for new artists, and it means that no space is guaranteed, which I think is really important. We want to give as many opportunities as we can to artists, and it keeps the artists on their toes. They can't keep just bringing the same work back.
Yeah, absolutely. Fresh work. So is the square footage bigger in the Board of Trade this year?
Yes, it's slightly bigger, which is nice, because it gives us a bit more room to find more artists and put together some other sort of showcases, which is nice.
Is there a print aspect to the other art fair? Like, do you guys have, I'm sure you guys are going to have like a bookstore, things like that. Like, is it traditional in that sense?
To be honest, not really. We don't really have the elements of fairs we don't sort of follow the template of other fairs, just because we found it doesn't suit our audience.
Okay.
So say, for example, like talks programs. And I love talks programs at fairs. I think they're really valuable, interesting, a great way to find out about what's going on in the art world. But our fair is, because it's a slightly smaller fair and it's about talking to the artists, we found that our visitors are kind of more spontaneous and just, they were interested in talks, but no one ever, people don't want to book on, they just want to come to the fair and enjoy the experience. And so we moved away from the more traditional sections of fairs. And
there we go. That was the word I was looking for earlier. Sections.
And now we work on features instead. So people really just turn up and explore.
What is a feature? Like, what does that mean?
So we just create experiences and activities in the fair that are free and open to all, and as you walk around the fair, you can stumble on them and explore something that is creative but might not be found in a normal art fair. Okay. For example, we worked with the Neo-Futurists, the immersive theatre company in Chicago, to create a bespoke boutique experience at Marnie Contemporary. So all of our visitors, as they arrived at the fair, they had to take an elevator, a sort of old-fashioned elevator with the doors, up to the 4th floor, and it was a 30-second ride. And we worked with the Neos to create a 30-second play. Oh. And each one was slightly different, and it depended what time you went and got into the elevator. So that sort of thing that's just sort of fun and exciting.
Unexpected.
The unexpected.
Yeah. That's real interesting. And are you still looking for partners, or will you be looking for partners for next year? And what type of collaborators do you look for?
We're always on the lookout for collaborators, always, because we like to keep it fresh. Yes. And it's just great to meet people that like the fair and then say they want to work with us, because they kind of get the ethos of the fair and what we're trying to do. We're always on the lookout. In terms of our programming for this year, I think I've got most of it sorted. So we're getting close to having our full program in place, and we'll be announcing it soon. But
that's great.
Yeah, we're always on the lookout, and particularly if people come to the fair, love it, and then come to us with ideas. That's really interesting.
Yeah, and where can people follow you or follow the fair? What are some of the social media handles?
So the other art fair is at the other art fair.
Perfect.
So definitely check that out. And my social media is Sophie Loxton Lucas.
Very
and
cool.
I post sort of behind the scenes about the fair
Yeah.
and what we're up to.
Nice. Well, thank you again. Pretty simple. Anything else you want to?
No, that went by so quickly.
Yeah, it went by so quickly.
I
Shout
really
out
enjoyed
to Buckley, Redner, and Boss Design. And yeah, thank you. I hope you enjoy the Elderflower.
Yes, I'm really impressed you found it.
For sure. Well, cheers. Thank you.
Cheers.
Your safety is important. If you observe unattended packages, vandalism, or suspicious activity, inform CTA personnel immediately.